He walked into the soup kitchen with dirt on his hands, holes in his shoes, and $4 billion in a bank account nobody knew about. He wasn't lost. He wasn't broken. He chose this. The man standing in that line, head down, stomach empty, smelling like a park bench, was Adrian Voss. The same Adrian Voss whose face was on the cover of Forbes. The same man who owned 3 private jets, 2 islands, and a penthouse that cost more than most countries' annual budgets. And he had given it all up. Not forever. Just long enough to answer one question that had been eating him alive for years. Is there a single person on this earth who could love me, and not my money? 2 broken engagements. 2 women who cried real tears when he proposed, and cried even harder when they saw the prenup. His last girlfriend had looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Adrian, I love you. I love everything about you." Then she paused. Just for a second. Just long enough for him to see it, that flicker. That calculation. That silent inventory of everything he owned. He had smiled. He had said nothing. And the next morning, he called his assistant and said 4 words. "Book me a flight. Somewhere nobody knows my face." He landed in Savannah, Georgia with $20, a burner phone, and the most dangerous plan a billionaire has ever made. Now stay with me, because what happened next will shock you. The woman he was about to meet. She had already applied for a job at his company. She just didn't know the homeless man handing her his bowl for a second serving was her future boss. Day 1 on the streets nearly broke him. Not emotionally. Physically. Adrian Voss had never cooked a meal in his life. He had a private chef. He had a meal delivery service. He had a backup meal delivery service in case the first one was slow. So when he sat on a park bench in Savannah at 7 p.m., trying to open a can of beans with a key, yes, a key, and the beans went everywhere, he just sat there. Staring at the ground. A pigeon walked over, looked at him, and walked away. His assistant Dex was parked 50 meters away in a black SUV, eating a gourmet chicken sandwich, watching through binoculars. Adrian pulled out the burner phone and called him. "Dex. Sir. Can you?" "No, sir. I wasn't going to. You were going to ask me to bring food." "The answer is no. Those are your rules." Adrian looked at the pigeon. The pigeon looked back. "Fine," he said. And he ate the beans cold, off the ground, with his fingers. $4 billion. Cold beans. Gravel. By day 3, he had figured out the park bench schedule, found a shelter with a hot shower on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and discovered that the best free meal in Savannah was at a little soup kitchen on Drayton Street. That was the day everything changed. He almost didn't go in. He was standing outside, looking through the window at the line of people waiting, and something hit him, guilt. Real guilt. These people weren't here by choice. He was playing a game while they were surviving a life. He nearly turned around. Then the door swung open and a voice said, "Are you coming in or are you just going to stand there making the line nervous?" He turned. She was standing in the doorway with a ladle in one hand and an apron that said "Fed by Love" in block letters. She had the kind of eyes that didn't wait for your answer before they had already figured you out. He started. "There's jollof rice today. You want 2 servings. I can already tell." She held the door open. "Come on." He came in. He sat down. She slid the bowl across the counter without looking up. He took one bite and stopped. He actually stopped eating because he needed a second to process that this was the best thing he had ever put in his mouth. And he had eaten at 11 Michelin-starred restaurants. He looked up to tell her. She was already 3 people down the line, laughing at something an old man had said. He came back the next day. And the next. On day 5, she finally asked his name. "Adrian," he said. "Just Adrian. Just Adrian." She studied him for a second. "You don't talk like someone who's been on the street long." "I'm a fast learner," he said. She handed him his bow. "Nadia," she said. Don't make me regret learning yours. They didn't fall in love in a montage. It happened in conversations. Slow ones. Real ones. The kind that only happen when nobody's performing. After closing time, when the last volunteer had wiped down the last table, Adrian would help stack the chairs. Nobody asked him to. He just did it. And Nadia noticed. One evening she sat on the steps outside and he sat beside her, and she said, out of nowhere, "Do you ever think about what your life was supposed to look like?" He was quiet for a long time. Every day, he finally said, "I used to think I was building something. Now I'm not sure what I was building it for." She turned to look at him. That's the most honest thing I've ever heard a stranger say. He almost told her right then. Almost. Instead he said, "What about you?" And she told him. About her mother's illness. About the hospital bills that arrived after the funeral, cold, official envelopes full of numbers that didn't care that she was still grieving. About the job application she'd sent to a big tech company. Voss Industries. She'd laughed when she said the name. Probably crazy, right? A soup kitchen volunteer applying to work for a billionaire. Adrian kept his face completely still. Not crazy, he said carefully. What would you do there? Community Impact Division, she said. Using corporate money to fund food programs. Basically doing what I do here, but with actual resources. She looked out at the street. My friend Lina thinks I'm delusional. But I figure, what's the worst they can say? No. What's the best they can say? He asked. She smiled. It was the kind of smile that rearranges something inside you. Yes, she said softly. He went home that night, back to the shelter, to his cot, to the thin blanket that smelled like old wool, and he stared at the ceiling and thought. She applied to work for me. She doesn't know it. And I am falling in love with her. Then the second thought hit him like cold water. When she finds out, and she will find out, she will never forgive me. And that was just the beginning. Because what Adrian didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that Nadia had a secret too. One that would flip this entire story on its head. Keep watching. This is about to get complicated. Day 12. Adrian was washing dishes in the back of the soup kitchen. Something he started doing just to stay close. Nadia had walked in, seen him elbow deep in soapy water, and said nothing. Just tied her apron and got to work beside him. That was the thing about her. She never made a big deal out of anything. She just showed up. Every single day. She just showed up. And it was killing him. Because every day he stayed was another day the lie got deeper. Another conversation he could not take back. Another moment she gave him something real while he handed her nothing but a costume. But that evening, something shifted. Nadia was quieter than usual. She kept checking her phone. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes had that look. The one where someone is trying very hard not to cry in public. He waited until everyone had left. Then he asked. What happened? She shook her head. Nothing. It is fine. Nadia. She looked at him. And something about the way he said her name, steady, certain, like he had all the time in the world, broke the wall she had put up. They want a second interview, she said. Voss Industries. They want me to come in next Friday. He nodded slowly. That is good. It is terrifying, she said. What if I get it and I am not good enough? What if I get it and I am good enough but they figure out I am just a girl from a soup kitchen who got lucky? She exhaled hard. What if I get it and it changes everything and I lose? She stopped. He looked at her. Lose what? She looked back at him. A long moment passed between them. This, she said quietly. Whatever this is. The word landed right in the center of his chest. Whatever this is. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. She did not pull away. You will not lose this, he said. And he meant it. He meant it more than he had meant anything in years. He just did not know yet how badly he was about to break it. Now stop. Because I need to tell you something about Nadia that changes everything you just heard. Remember those hospital bills? Her mother's death. The reason she worked double volunteer shifts just to feel like she was doing something useful in the world. Nadia had not just applied to Voss Industries. 6 months before Adrian ever set foot in Savannah, Nadia's mother had been a patient at St. Catherine's Hospital. And St. Catherine's Hospital had been quietly acquired by a Voss Industries subsidiary 18 months earlier. A boardroom decision that Adrian had approved in a 3-minute meeting without reading the full brief had directly caused her mother's insurance coverage to be denied. Nadia did not know that. She had no idea that the company she was interviewing for, the company she was pinning her entire future on, had a fingerprint on the worst year of her life. And Adrian had no idea either. Not yet. Because on day 13, while Adrian was at the shelter staring at his burner phone, his assistant Dex sent him a file. A routine background check. Standard procedure for all final round candidates. Adrian almost did not open it. He did. He read Nadia's file for 11 minutes. He read it until his hands went completely still on the table. Until the shelter noise around him, the coffin, the television, the man 3 cots down snoring, faded to nothing. Her mother's name. The hospital. The denied claim. The date. He scrolled to the boardroom minutes. His signature at the bottom. He sat there for a very long time. Then he typed one message to Dex. Pull the fire. Do not discuss this with anyone. I need to fix something. Dex replied immediately. Fix what? Adrian stared at the screen. Everything, he typed. And turned off the phone. He went to the soup kitchen the next morning with the full intention of telling her. Not about who he was. Not yet. But about the hospital. About what he had found. He was going to sit her down, tell her the truth about the insurance, and then figure out how to make it right without revealing the rest of the lie. That was the plan. He walked through the door. Nadia was already there. She looked up and her whole face changed the way it always did when she saw him. Open. Warm. Real. And he lost his nerve completely. He told himself, after service. After the kitchen closes. Then I will tell her. But after service, Lina was there. Lina, Nadia's best friend, who had been watching Adrian with the quiet and focused suspicion of a woman who had seen too many good people get hurt. She had been watching him for 2 weeks. And that morning she had done something about it. She walked up to him while Nadia was in the back. She placed her phone on the table, face up. On the screen was a Forbes article. 3 years old. Adrian Voss in a sharp grey suit standing in front of Voss Industries headquarters. She tapped the photo. Nice shoes, she said. Same ones you are wearing. Just older. He looked at the photo. He looked at her. Does she know? Lina asked. Silence. You have until tonight, Lina said. You tell her yourself. Or I do. She picked up her phone and walked away. He did not get until tonight. At 4:47 in the afternoon, while Adrian was still rehearsing what to say, a photographer from a local gossip blog, tipped off by someone at the shelter, posted a blurry photo online. Adrian. Standing in line at the soup kitchen. Unmistakably him. The caption read, "Is that Adrian Voss? Billionaire CEO spotted living on Savannah streets. PR stunt or breakdown." The post had 400 shares before 5 p.m. Nadia saw it at 5:23 in the afternoon. She was standing at the prep counter. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Saw the headline. Looked at the photo. Looked up. Adrian had just walked in through the back door. The kitchen was empty. Just the two of them. No volunteers. No noise. Just silence and the hum of the refrigerator. She held up her phone. She did not say a word. She did not need to. He stopped walking. How long? She asked. Her voice was completely calm. That was the most frightening part. She was not screaming. She was not crying. She was just still. Like someone who had already decided something. From the beginning, he said. She nodded slowly. Like she already knew but needed to hear him say it out loud. And the interview, she said. Voss Industries. That is your company? Yes. So you knew? This whole time, every conversation, every evening on those steps, you knew exactly who I was and where I worked and what I was going for, and you said nothing. I was going to tell you tonight. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh but carried no warmth at all. Tonight, she repeated. Right. She picked up her bag. She did not slam anything. She did not raise her voice. She just walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the frame, and said one last thing without turning around. I defended you, Adrian. To everyone who said something was off about you, I defended you. I told them they were wrong. She walked out. He stood in that empty kitchen for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. A fly landed on the counter. Outside, Savannah carried on like nothing had happened. Inside, everything had. If you are still watching, you already know this story is not over. Because Adrian is about to make a decision that has nothing to do with money, and everything to do with who he actually is underneath all of it. Stay with me. He did not call her. No flowers. No limo pulling up outside the soup kitchen. No press release apology drafted by a PR team. No seven-figure donation to the kitchen with her name on a plaque outside. Nothing. Because Adrian Voss had spent his entire adult life solving problems with money. And for the first time, he understood that money was not going to work here. That if he showed up with anything that looked like a transaction, he would lose her forever. So he did the only thing he could think of. He went back to the soup kitchen on a Tuesday morning. Not to see her. Not to explain. He walked in, found the head volunteer, a stout woman named Miss Gloria who had the energy of someone who had seen everything and was impressed by nothing, and he said 4 words. I want to help. Miss Gloria looked him up and down. You know how to wash dishes? She asked. He paused just a moment too long. I am learning, he said. She handed him an apron. Get to work. He washed dishes for 4 hours that Tuesday. He was slow. He was clumsy. He dropped a pot lid that clanged so loudly the entire kitchen went silent and 15 heads turned at once. Miss Gloria closed her eyes like she was praying for patience. He came back Wednesday. He came back Thursday. On Friday morning he arrived before anyone else. He was sitting on the steps when Miss Gloria unlocked the door. She looked at him. Looked at her watch. Looked at him again. You are either very sorry or very stupid, she said. He stood up. Maybe both, he said. She let him in. Nadia arrived at 9 a.m. She walked through the door, unwinding her scarf, and stopped when she saw him at the sink. He did not look up. He kept his eyes on the dishes and his hands in the water. She stood there for a moment. Then she tied her apron and walked to the other side of the kitchen. They walked in silence for 2 hours. Not uncomfortable silence. Not angry silence. The silence of 2 people with too much to say and no idea where to start. Then Miss Gloria called out from the back. Adrian. You are on rice duty. He turned around. What does that mean? It means you stir the rice, Miss Gloria said slowly, like she was explaining gravity to someone particularly challenging, so it does not burn. Can you manage that? He stirred the rice. It burned slightly. Miss Gloria said nothing. Nadia pressed her lips together to keep from smiling. He saw it. Just barely. Just enough. He came back the following week. And the week after that. He stopped wearing the old disguise. No more aged makeup. No more deliberate dishevelment. He just came as himself. Jeans. A simple shirt. His actual face. And nobody treated him any differently because Miss Gloria had made it very clear to the other volunteers that in her kitchen, everyone was just a person with a job to do. On the third Tuesday, Nadia finally spoke to him. Not about the lie. Not about Voss Industries. Not about any of it. She just walked up beside him at the sink, picked up a dish towel, and said, "You are leaving watermarks on everything." He looked at the glass in his hand. "How do you dry it without watermarks?" he asked. She took the glass, showed him the motion, handed it back. He tried it. "Better?" he asked. She tilted her head. "Marginally," she said. And walked away. He smiled at the glass for longer than was reasonable. 2 days later she sat beside him on the steps after closing. First time since everything collapsed. She did not look at him right away. She just looked at the street. The evening was warm. A dog was sleeping on the opposite pavement. A child was chasing a bottle cap down the sidewalk. She said, "I know about the hospital." He went still. "Dex called me," she said. "He told me about the insurance decision. About your signature. About what you have been trying to fix since you found out." He opened his mouth. "I am not finished," she said. He closed it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I spent 3 weeks being angry at you for lying about who you were. And then I found out you had been carrying a completely separate truth you did not even know was connected to me. And somehow that made it worse and better at the same time." She shook her head slowly. "Do you know how exhausting it is to be angry at someone and then find out the thing you were angry about is even more complicated than you thought?" "I imagine it is very exhausting," he said carefully. "It is extremely exhausting," she said. Another silence. The dog on the pavement rolled over in its sleep. "Why did you really come here?" she asked. "Not Savannah. Here. This kitchen. These past 3 weeks." He thought about the right way to say it. Then he stopped thinking about the right way and just said it. "Because this is the only place I have ever been a person," he said. "Not a portfolio. Not a headline. Not someone's plan. Just a person. And the only reason I wanted to stay a person was because you were here." She looked at him for the first time that evening. Really looked at him. "You burned the rice," she said. "I know. Twice. I am aware." She looked back at the street. "But you kept coming back," she said softly. "Even when I did not speak to you. Even when Miss Gloria gave you the worst jobs. You just kept showing up." "It is the only thing I know how to do now," he said. "Show up." A long moment passed. She reached over and covered his hand with hers. The same way he had covered hers that evening at the table when she was afraid about the interview. The same gesture. Returned. "I am not saying we are fine," she said. "I am saying I am willing to find out if we can be." He looked down at her hand on his. Then he looked up at the street. At the dog and the child and the warm Savannah evening carrying on like nothing extraordinary was happening. "That is enough," he said. "That is more than enough." He did not buy her anything. He did not make any grand announcements. He did not issue a press statement or post anything online or call a single journalist. What he did was come back on Thursday. And the Thursday after that. And every Thursday after that for the rest of the year. He also, quietly, anonymously, restructured the insurance policy at St. Catherine's Hospital. Every family that had been denied coverage under the old subsidiary agreement received a personal settlement. No press release. No naming rights. No plaque on a wall anywhere. Nadia found out 6 months later when one of the families came into the soup kitchen and told her what had happened to them. She came home that evening, sat across from Adrian, and looked at him for a long time. "You did not tell me," she said. "No," he said. "Why not?" "Because it was not for you," he said. "It was for them. And it was for me. I needed to fix it because it was wrong." Not to earn anything back. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. Okay. There is one more thing you need to know. Nadia never took the job at Voss Industries. She turned it down. Formally. In writing. With a very polite letter that Adrian read 4 times and kept in his desk drawer. Instead, she stayed at the soup kitchen. She became its full-time director. She tripled its capacity. She launched a program that trained volunteers to become community health workers. She partnered with 6 other organizations across Georgia. The operational funding came from an anonymous donor. Miss Gloria knew exactly who it was. She never said a word. She just handed Adrian a slightly better position every time he came in. By the end of the year, he had graduated from dishes to rice. The rice no longer burned. Most of the time. That is the whole story. A billionaire who had everything went looking for the one thing money could not buy. He lied his way into finding it. He told the truth and nearly lost it. And then he did the only thing that actually mattered. He showed up. Quietly. Consistently. With no audience and no agenda. And it turned out that was all it ever took. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want more stories like this one, you know what to do. Subscribe. Because the next one is already waiting.